This is the Gerry Callahan Show.
Years from now, 75, 100 years from now, professors, political analysts, pundits will try to explain this moment in time, this moment in American history. They will look at Donald Trump and say, how did that happen? How did he get elected? How did this obnoxious billionaire from New York City, this vulgar man, who was despised by the mainstream media, who went up against big tech and Hollywood and academia, who was an outsider, who was not in good with the political class. How did this happen? How did he get elected not once but twice? How did a man who was arrested, charged with 93 felonies, whose mugshot was taken, who was banned by social media platforms, who was shot, who was 78 years old. How did it happen? How did he get 77 million votes? How did he dispatch the Clintons, the Cheneys, the Bushes, the Obamas? How did he end up running the country for 8 years? And I will say this. Here's where they can start. Yesterday, April 29th, the 100th day of his second term, when he went to Warren, Michigan, and held a rally and talked for an hour and a half and freewheeled it and told stories and brought people up on stage and had a blast. Here's the difference between Donald Trump and everyone else in politics. Here's the difference in Trump and every other president and all those people who he has left in his wake. Again, the Obamas, the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons, the Bidens. He loves this. I mean, he is in his element. He is not a politician. He's been president for 4 years and 101 days, and he's still not a politician. He still doesn't play by the rules. He still doesn't give an F for the most part. And what he did yesterday, all day, to celebrate his 100th day, to mark this occasion, was just remarkable when you think about it. Flying to Michigan, holding an event with some at a military base, calling up Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer when she sure didn't want to be called up in this moment, so she could thank him for coming there and in investing in Michigan, supporting Michigan, and then going to this rally, which was just the ultimate Trump event. He hit all the notes. He talked about everything. He stuck to the script for most of the night, but then he winged it, and then he kind of went. Then he just kind of played to the crowd, told stories, made jokes, and they absolutely loved it. And you watch this and you say, we've never seen it before. And you know what? We'll never see it again. There'll never be a phenomenon like this. We are witnessing American history, and they will study this for decades, and they will do it begrudgingly. They hate the man. They hate everything about him. Here's a guy who's gotten almost 100% negative coverage from the mainstream media. Even now, even after 4 years and 101 days, they do everything they can to stop him, and they can't. He's an unstoppable force, a force of nature, a almost 79-year-old man who has limitless energy, who just goes all day, all night. He's the guy the Biden liars, the media told you Biden was. They can't keep up. He is just unstoppable, and it's remarkable to see. There are gaffes, there are exaggerations, there are uncomfortable moments, but there's no phoniness. There's no act. That's the difference. I think that's why people gravitate towards him. That's why they love him, because he's not pretending to be something he's not, and he has never pretended. in a weird way, I know the media accuses him of lying constantly. He's the most genuine, transparent, honest politician. He's honest, even when he's exaggerating, even when he's lying. That's who he is. He's not pretending. He's not acting. He's not a phony. We've seen so many phonies. And there's something refreshing, even when he goes off script and gets a little weird. That's him. That's why they like him. They think what he's doing is genuine, authentic. When he says he wants to make America great, when he wants to put America first, he means it, and they believe him. We believe him. It is a gift. It's a gift of authenticity. He never pretends to be something he's not. If he's meeting with farm workers out in the farm, or ranchers or oil workers, he's still got the blue suit and the red tie. He doesn't put on the Tim Walz outfit and pretend to be a hunter. He doesn't pretend to be anything but himself.
Kristi Noem as well.
Yeah, doesn't get dressed up like Kristi Noem and go on raids and cosplay. There's never any cosplaying, and we've never seen that from another politician. You'll never see him have his Dukakis moment in a tank. You'll never see him put on a hunting outfit like John Kerry and go out and pretend he's something he's not. If you want to understand him, that's the first thing you have to realize. That's what the historians, the people who write the history, the books, the authors, that's where they have to start. There is no act. There is no phoniness. And it is something to see. I've seen hundreds of these rallies, and I couldn't stop watching yesterday. You probably didn't watch it all. 90 minutes. It went on too long. They always go on too long because he loves it. He's having a blast, and so are the people in the crowd. I've seen lots of other people hold rallies. By the way, I haven't seen any clips yet from Kamala Harris, who made her big speech last night, charging $25 to live stream, to watch the stream. She wanted people to pay for her, one of the worst public speakers, one of the phoniest politicians we've ever seen. And she expected people to pay to watch what she had to say. I don't think too many people did, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. But what Trump did last night was remarkable. And I've heard people, even enemies of his, people like Michael Moore and Bill Maher, try to explain the phenomenon to the fools, to the chumps in the media who still, the thing they hate everything about Trump, let's be honest. The thing they hate the most is that people love him. They can't understand it. They don't get it. They look at him and they say, how? How can they support him? He's crazy. He's vulgar. He's obnoxious. He's egotistical. Why? Why do they fall for this? It's simple. He's real. He's real. Almost everyone else we've seen in that position, everyone else we've seen in politics, I've seen on a big stage, is reading a script, is pretending to be something they're not, and he never does that. It was an amazing event and a successful event, and he should go on stage. I got a new plan. Go on stage with two middle fingers up in the air, right at the fake news, which he calls out at every event. The fake news back there. He doesn't, even when he sits down with them, which he does too often, in my opinion, sits down with Jeffrey Goldberg or Terry Moran from ABC, he calls them out to their faces. Let's do this first before we get to the rally. The quick clip from the Terry Moran interview in the White House. He sits down with one of his most staunch enemies, Terry Moran from ABC News, who hates him. ABC News, who does more than anyone to try to stop Trump. The report from Media Research Center over the weekend was not a surprise to anybody. The coverage Trump has received in his first 100 days has been 92% negative. It feels like 100% to me from the big three networks, including ABC. Trump knows that, and he doesn't care. He sits down with his enemies because he loves it, and he loves calling them out to their faces. This is, I believe, right at the end of his sit down with Terry Moran. Watch how he wraps it up. It's great.
The reputation of the United States has gone down under your presidency.
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across the stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right.
Thank you. By the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, he says. We will never see that again. We've never seen that before. I've been observing, politics in this country for a long time. That has never happened. Even when you have guys, there are guys I loved. I loved, Ted Cruz, Ron DeSantis, people that call out the media on occasion. They don't do this. Sit down in the Oval Office, look them in the eye and said, "You are fake news. You are one of the worst." I don't like when he sits down with these people because he gives them, what they want. He gives them ratings. He gives them clicks. But the way he does it is just spectacular. That was a great moment. We'll get to more of his sit down with fake news ABC, but I want to play a couple of clips from this rally because, again, we've seen it 1,000 times, and it's still something to behold when you see the connection. These are blue-collar people for the most part from Michigan. These used to be Democrats. Like for 50 years, these were Democrats. These were loyal blue voters for working-class people, union people, auto workers. He has flipped it on its head. They not only support him, they love him. They love what he has to say. They cheer when he talks about tariffs. They cheer when he talks about the globalists who've destroyed, this was the best line of the rally, by the way, destroy Detroit to build up Beijing. Is this the clip? I love this moment, and so did everybody in this arena. Go ahead.
Taking back our country from a sick political class that got rich selling America out and bleeding America dry. We don't let that happen anymore. And we had 4 great years. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. The stock market went up 88%. We did great. And we're going to do better now, because now we learned a little bit. After years of leaders who sent your money to defend the borders of distant foreign nations, that's what we did. We'd fight for other nations, but not for ourselves. You finally have a president who is defending our borders and our nation. After decades of politicians who destroyed Detroit to build up Beijing, you finally have a champion for workers in the White House. And instead of putting China first, I'm putting Michigan first, and I'm putting America first.
That is perfect right there. That is a Republican president calling out the sick political class, and the crowd could not have loved it anymore. That right there explains the Trump phenomenon. While you heard all day, you've heard all week, poll numbers, job approval. They even say that that he's underwater on immigration. It's all lies. Do you think those people are unhappy? Do you think any Republican voter is unhappy with Trump's performance on immigration? It's so ridiculous. And I know, Jessica Tarloff and Chris Hayes will talk about, look at these poll numbers. First of all, he's doing bold, unusual things, which may affect his poll numbers. So what? He has 1,300 more days to go. Let's see what happens in 3 months, 6 months, a year. He's doing things no president had the guts to do in terms of these trade deals. Are we going to see a deal made with another country any moment now? Yes, we are. And then what will happen? And then what will the polls show? I think it's important, and it's praise. He deserves praise for taking a chance, for not governing by polls, by poll numbers. It bothers him when he has bad poll numbers, but it's going to happen when you do things at Trump speed. You do them things that are generally unpopular with politicians because you're looking at those numbers. You're saying, they don't like this. He's doing it anyway. And the people who support him could not be happier. The idea that there's any Trump voters who regret their vote is just laughable. One more cut from the rally. It was just one greatest hit after another. Here's the other thing that people don't understand. And, the analysts, the historians, the authors, they still don't get it. After Trump, after 9 years of Trump, they still don't understand. He's not an ideologue. He's not a rock rib Republican. He's not a Bush, a Cheney. He dismisses the labels, the conservative, Republican, right wing, left wing. He doesn't care about that. He just keeps saying, and I believe this, he has never been an ideologue. He is governed by common sense and America first. That's it. That's all. And he explains it over and over again. And clearly, he's a Republican and Republicans support him and Democrats hate him. But when he looks at an issue, he doesn't say, what does my party want me to do? He does common sense things, America first things. It drives him on every issue. Here he is explaining once again.
But we're ending the inflation nightmare, the worst that we've had probably in the history of our country, getting woke lunacy and transgender insanity the hell out of our government. We're stopping the indoctrination of our children, slashing billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. And above all, we're saving the American dream. We're making America great again, and it's happening fast, too. What the world has witnessed in the past 14 weeks is a revolution of common sense. That's all it is, really. We're conservative. You're conservative, you're liberal, whatever the hell. You know what it's all about? It's about common sense when you think about it. We're for common sense. We like strong borders. We like good education. We like low interest rates. We like being able to buy a beautiful car. And now deduct the interest on the loan. That's never happened before.
That's why he puts him in a box. He does common sense things like, no boys and girls sports. How about closing the border? And forces his opposition, forces the mainstream media and the Democrats to defend indefensible positions. That's what happens when you're governed by common sense. That's what's happening in this country right now as we see Democrats double down on defending MS-13 gang members, on defending illegal immigrants who've just destroyed communities. Trump and the Trump team are trying to get them out, and Democrats reflexively have to oppose it. They have to support boys kicking girls' asses in sports. They have to support open borders. And everyone's looking around saying, that makes no sense. And if you're not just completely consumed, with politics, with your party, you look at that and you say, that makes all the sense. Why would you want a boy and a girl sport? Why would you want open borders? Why would you want to defend MS-13? What sense does that make? That is his other great gift. He is driven, governed by common sense. And when you oppose him, you make no sense. And that's the position the Democrats are in right now. And they're in the position of defending the biggest cover-up in American political history. This is amazing. We knew it was coming. We talked about it every day for 4 years. We had a man, a dementia patient in the White House. We don't know who was running the country for 4 years. We don't know who was behind the scenes. We don't know who's operating the auto pen, who's making any of the big decisions. We saw it with our own eyes daily. And we saw the media lie to you every day. Democrats lie to you every day. We knew they were lying. Everyone knew they were lying because, I don't know, we had video. We had evidence that Joe Biden was not well. We knew it. We said it before he was elected in 2020. We said, this guy is not right. They hid him in the basement. They didn't allow him to do any interviews. I believe Joe Biden never did an interview with the New York Times or the Washington Post in his 4 years. Trump sits down with Jeffrey Goldberg and Terry Moran. Joe Biden wouldn't sit down with his biggest cheerleaders because they knew he was not right in the head. And they just carried him, literally carried him for 4 years and trusted that the media would cover it up. And the media didn't let them down, didn't let the Democrats down. They lied, they covered up, and now they want to revise history. Chuck Todd is the latest. We will get to Chucky explaining how the media's not to blame here. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. They were fooled by, Jill Biden. When Jill Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre, Kamala Harris told you Joe Biden was tip-top, they believed them. What a freaking liar. We'll get to that and much more. We'll get to the receipts. We brought them to you every day for 4 years. And we still got them. And it's still amazing that people like Chuck Todd and that Alex Thompson, from Axios, who got an award the other night for his brave and courageous coverage of the White House. What a lie. He was just as culpable in the cover-up as everyone else in the mainstream media. We'll get to that and more, but first.
Excuse me.
Listen up, Ironhead. This is important. This is for you because I know sometimes late at night you go into incognito mode, when you're looking for love. But did you know that incognito mode is not enough to hide your browsing history? Check the fine print, pal. All your online activity is still 100% visible to a ton of third parties unless you use ExpressVPN. Without ExpressVPN, these third parties can still see every website you visit, even in incognito mode. They can see your internet service provider, your mobile network provider, the admins of your Wi-Fi network, like your school, your boss, your parents. ExpressVPN reroutes 100% of your traffic through secure encrypted servers so third parties can't see your browsing history. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making it extremely difficult for third parties to track your online activity. It's easy to use. That's important to me. Fire up the app and click one button to get protected. And it works on all devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay private on the go. Even if you're not watching porn, you want your data protected. You want your text protected. You don't want to take any chances. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/Jerry. That's EXPRESSVPN.com/Jerry. And you can get an extra 4 months free. expressvpn.com/Jerry. Before we get to Chucky Todd, that liar, every time the media, every time one of the networks, the big three, CNN, MSNBC, every time they tell you, oh, Trump's approval rating, Trump's unpopular, I think they should be required to put this graphic up there as well. Get the graphic about Media Research Center. God bless them for doing the work. Here's the coverage of Donald Trump in the first 100 days. 92% negative. Here's the coverage for Joe Biden in the first 100 days. 59% positive. I mean, 92%, it's almost completely negative. Everything he did was negative. So maybe that has an effect. Not as much as it used to, but maybe the media has an effect, affects the approval numbers. And here it is for his cabinet guys, his most prominent cabinet members. Coverage of RFK, 89% negative. Coverage of Elon Musk, 96% negative. And Pete Hegseth, of course, 100% negative. Now, you can criticize these guys all you want, but 100% for Pete Hegseth? What about the recruitment numbers? They're through the roof. Elon Musk, what did he do? Honest to God, this is how dishonest the media is. Musk, as we know, we've seen him do an interview with all his Doge guys, explaining the fraud, the waste, the abuse, the theft at USAID and in Social Security. and in Medicare. People scamming the system. He has saved the taxpayers $160 billion. That's almost $1,000 per taxpayer. Why would he get 96% negative coverage? I will tell you why. Because they're liars and they're partisans and they're hacks. You don't give Elon Musk any credit for exposing all this fraud, for saving taxpayers billions, 160 billion and counting, and his coverage is almost completely negative. There's such frauds. There's such liars. So Chucky Todd goes on with his friend Chris Calizza, whatever it is, another hack. I believe used to be at CNN. Goes on his podcast. Chucky was fired, replaced at whatever he did this week on one of the Sunday morning shows. And he's a little bitter. But you know what he's upset about? That the media, that his pals in the Washington, D.C. press corps are being blamed for the cover-up that they were very much a part of, for covering up the cognitive decline of Joe Biden. Now, we know what happened. We saw it. We listened to Joe Scarborough in March, a little more than a year ago, saying the Biden you're seeing right now is the best Biden ever. We've seen it, Chuck. We've heard it. We played it. We saw every damn day Joe Biden wandering aimlessly around the stage or shaking hands with imaginary people or calling out dead people or just melting down on camera. Did they cover it honestly? Of course they didn't. They covered it up. They covered it with a pillow until it died. That's how they handled the story. They were as culpable. They were more guilty than the people in Biden's inner circle, because obviously the people in Biden's inner circle are going to lie and try to protect their guy. You know, that's what they did. That's what KJP's role was, to get out there and lie to the public every day. You didn't have to believe them, you fool. In fact, you didn't believe them, but you knew anytime you covered Biden honestly, anytime you exposed the lies of the Biden administration, it would help Trump. And that's your whole life was devoted to stopping Trump. Listen to this lying hack, Chuck Todd.
This is not a media failure. This is a failure of the Democratic Party. And I just sort of the virtue signaling that some people have done to try to say that the media missed this story. They didn't miss this story. So, David Ignatius wrote, I just refuse to accept this stupid premise, because it's a manufactured right-wing premise in order to stain the media. The media's got plenty of things to attack them for. And there are MSNBC and CNN and pundits that absolutely carried water for Joe Biden, but they're not journalists. They're former strategists that carried water for Joe Biden. The journalist, David Ignatius, wrote a very high-profile column in October of 23 saying, is he really running again? This doesn't seem like a good idea. People like me were promoting Dean Phillips's campaign because he was running
Wall Street Journal did a bunch of coverage.
Sense. So it's not like this. This isn't WMDs, where the White House worked with the mainstream media to manufacture a story that did not exist. That was a press failure, massive press failure. This was not that failure. This is an attempt by some to virtue signal, and it's this horrible sort of pitting different news organizations against each other, when ultimately the people at fault are Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Jill Biden, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, every elected member of Congress.
So the United States of America, for God's sake.
So those people, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Jill Biden, lied to you, Chucky. You ran with those lies. You agreed with them. You covered it up. You liar. He says it was not a press failure. Does he think we weren't paying attention? They literally said they were cheap fakes when we showed you video of Joe Biden in his declining state.
Over $1.2 billion.
Oh, God, more cheap fakes from the media. It was the biggest cover-up in American history, and you were a part of it. And his defense is he promoted Dean Phillips. How about telling us that Joe Biden wasn't cognitively well, that it wasn't coherent, that he wasn't able to perform the functions of the president. Here's one moment. I mean, we did this every day. You know who's not at fault? I'm not. Most of the right-wing media, the podcasters, most of the people on Newsmax, they're not at fault. They showed you this. I remember talking about this for like a whole show. Here's Joe Biden, and I know what dementia looks like. This is dementia. This is a man confused who doesn't know where he is, who's not quite awake, not totally asleep, just out of it. This is, get the date on this. This is 2022, maybe 2023. This was years before Alex Thompson ever wrote a word at an Axios.
August 22nd, 2023.
2020. So it's almost 2 years ago. This guy was president 101 days ago. And Chuck Todd didn't point out the absurdity of that liar. I mean, I told you this morning, I said, let's get a couple of clips, things that we played. Look, he's got the hands. He's got the dementia hands, the stiff fingers. He's got all the symptoms. We're going to find out soon enough because, I mean, they're still able to march him out. By the way, at the Pope's funeral, he needed people to escort him by the arms to his seat, up and down little stairs. He's not well. He never was. He was in bad shape in 2020 when he was running, and they hid him from the media, and the media didn't call it out at all. Let's get to a couple more of the greatest hits from Joe Biden. Things that
the United States of America, for God's sake.
Things that slipped past Chuck Todd and David Ignatius and Alex Thompson and Chris Calizia, whatever his name is. I mean, they act like we didn't live through this. I know people don't trust the media. I know their approval rating is a hell of a lot lower than Trump's for good reason. They should never trust them again. This exposed them for what they are. They're not just hacks. They're partisans. They're Democrats. They knew if they covered Biden honestly, it would help Trump. It would help the Republicans. And they refused because that's what they do. That's what they are. Here's the guy they told you was tip top, who they told you this was a cheap fake. And we got a pile of receipts on this. I mean, there's threads on Twitter today about the lies they told you. All of them. Let's just take a look back at the commander in chief. This is what he did almost daily, wandering around the stage, can't figure out how to get off the stage. And the White House told you, KJP told you that was a cheap fake. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know where he's going. They're like, uh-oh. What else we got, Ironhead? I know you have a whole file of these.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America. I laid an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
The best Biden ever, Joe Scarborough told you. And I love Chuck Todd saying, those aren't journalists. The real journalists are David Ignatius, another deep state hack. Oh, this is one of my favorites. This was in Massachusetts when he was talking about, climate change. And he obviously, he lies like he breathes. The man just can't tell the truth. But you would think when a president tells you he had cancer, you think the media might set off some alarm bells and say, wow, I didn't know that. Let's look into that. But no, they didn't even mention it. Listen to this insanity.
And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why I can't for the longest time. Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Why, I had cancer. Cheap fake, another cheap fake video. I don't remember anybody. I don't remember David Ignatius doing a deep dive into Joe Biden's bout with cancer. It's just remarkable. Throw that New York Times headline I sent you up there.
Was a bad dude.
I mean, the corn pop thing, we talked about kids rubbing his leg, was like 2018? He's been in, here's a headline from the New York Times. This is a real headline. For Joe Biden, what seems like age might instead be style. In this respect, the president has something in common with Beethoven, Wagner, and Martin Scorsese. That's the New York Times telling you that Joe Biden's, these senior moments, just style. That's the way he is. Or even better, when Jake Tapper, the biggest fraud of them all, attacked, like literally shouted at Laura Trump when she mocked Biden for being confused because she was making fun of her man with a stutter. Jake Tapper said, don't you realize that is going to hurt kids with stutters? Yes, Joe Biden has a stutter. And you can look back at the coverage of the debate last June 27th. Almost to a man, the mainstream media told you, Joe Biden has a cold. He has a cold. Yeah, the guy we saw Meltdown on the debate stage saying he killed Medicare. That guy, he just had a cold. You know why they said that? Because the Biden team told them to say it, emailed it out, said, here's the problem. Our guy has a cold.
Don't.
And they all ran with it. Joe Biden has a cold. They are such liars. And you know what? They're still lying. They continue lying. I got a whole stack of headlines and stories of Republicans. Here's one headline. I think this is New York Times. How Republicans used misleading videos to attack Biden in a 24-hour period. That was last June. That they used videos, deep fake videos, to attack Joe Biden. Verbal gaffe or sign of trouble, says the AP. Mixing up names like Biden and Trump have done is pretty common. Mixing up names. When Joe Biden said he had a deal with France, with Mitterrand of France, that's just common. People mix up names. It couldn't possibly be a sign of cognitive decline.
When I signed the bipartisan infrastructure.
This is from NBC News. As Biden's memory issues draw attention, neurologists weigh in. Neurologists, forgetting the names of acquaintances, having difficulty remembering dates from the past, doesn't affect decision-making or judgment, brain experts say. That's from NBC. Mixing up names doesn't affect his judgment. Memory loss requires careful analysis, scientists say. That's from the New York Times. One after another, there are hundreds of examples of the media participating in the cover-up. And Chuck Todd says, no, it was just Jill Biden. It was Jill Biden and Chuck Schumer. They lied to us. They covered it up. Well, why? How'd they get away with it? You're a journalist, aren't you, Chuck? Shouldn't you have called them out? Shouldn't you have realized they were lying to you? Shouldn't you have understood at that point when Joe Biden hid and never did any appearances or interviews with you? Shouldn't you have realized that something was up? But you didn't, because you are what you've always been. You're just a Democrat operative with a press past. That's what you are. That's what they all are. All right, we could do this all day. We could, honest to God, we did it all day. We did it for 4 years. Lots of people did. Lots of people told you. The public recognized it. That's why he quit the race a couple of days after he said he wasn't quitting the race, because his poll numbers plummeted despite the efforts of the media. Yeah, here's Alex. This was just ridiculous. If you missed it, and you probably did, the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday, there was no comedian, because comedian, they realized A, wasn't funny, and B, she hates Trump. She said she couldn't make jokes about Trump and the media and the Republicans because they're murderers. How do you make jokes about a murderer? So they wisely disinvited her. So they had no comedian, no president, of course, but they honored themselves for their bravery. And again, Alex Thompson wrote some stories about Biden's condition, but he did it like in June or July of 2024. He didn't do it in 21, 22, 23. He was part of the cover-up, just like they all were. There's plenty of evidence, but here he is talking about the media and their role in this cover-up.
President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception.
Really?
But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story, and some people trust us less because of it. We bear some responsibility for faith in the media being at such lows.
You liar. You didn't miss the story. You covered it up. You ignored it for political partisan reasons. He got a big trophy for this. He showed up in his tux and said, we just missed it. It slipped by. Who knew? How were we supposed to know Joe Biden was a mess? What evidence was there? We just didn't dig hard enough. We didn't work hard enough to uncover this story. What a lie. And again, he's held up as an example of a guy who actually did journalism. No, you didn't. Not until the final weeks when you realized that your guy was hopeless. Then you came around and said, you know what? We got to save some of our dignity at this point. What a disgrace. And that whole event, we're just here. We're truth tellers. We're truth tellers. No, you're liars. That's what you are. You're liars. And we all know it now. And that's why no one trusts you. And very few people are reading you and you don't matter. That's why people love when Trump calls you out. You are fake news. And he does it on a daily basis, and he should. But all right, speaking of fake news, we got to get to Michelle Wu, Boston mayor. Someone has to tell her that times have changed. But I want to do this first because this is just breaking. We talked a lot about Harvard University getting $9 billion of taxpayer money, the Trump administration freezing $2 billion, and immediately, like the good little sheep they are, the media said, oh, this is going to cost, we don't cure childhood cancer now. If we don't continue to send billions to Harvard, children will die. They have $53 billion in the bank. Why can't they do the research? Why can't they cure cancer with their own money? Why do they need taxpayer money at all? Well, they finally released their report on campus anti-Semitism, and it doesn't look good. Man, this is just incredible to me. I know we've talked about it before. This is from the Times of Israel. You got to look hard to get an honest assessment of this. Harvard University released its long-awaited internal report on anti-Semitism depicting a hostile atmosphere toward Jews and Israel and the October 2023 invasion of Israel. The report came amid heavy pressure on the university from the Trump administration and outlines a series of recommendations the university should take to remedy the campus environment. It's 311 pages. It starts with an anecdote that reflected many of the tensions. A Jewish student speaker at a conference planned to tell the story of his Holocaust survival grandfather finding refugee in Israel. Organizers of the event told the student the story was not tasteful and laughed at him when he expressed his confusion. The story would have been seen as a way to justify oppression, the authors said. And it goes through all these examples of them harassing Jewish kids. And you look at it and you say, even if that Jewish speaker, if he was in the IDF, if he was, fighting the war, it would be outrageous. But he's just a kid going to college, 5,000 miles from the war zone. And these scumbags, these Hamas supporting lunatics are blaming the Jewish kids on campus. And somehow that's just, free speech. And we shouldn't try to, tell people what they could say. What about when they block kids from walking across campus? When they celebrated October 7th, was that a little bridge too far for the folks at Harvard? I say they can do this. Let them do it. Let them do it with their own freaking money. Tax the endowment, tax the land. It's insane that some hardworking American taxpayer has to send a portion of his paycheck to Harvard. By the way, they also released a 220-page report on anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, anti-Palestine bias. Just so you know, you can't talk about anti-Semitism if you don't talk about anti-Muslim bias and Islamophobia. Totally made up. We've seen it with our own eyes. All right, let's get to Michelle Wu before we wrap this up, because we in Boston haven't received the memo yet. We haven't received the memo that people are done giving their money to illegal aliens, putting them up in $500 a night hotel rooms, protecting them from ICE. Well, this absolutely incompetent fool who runs Boston, she's still, everything she does is DEI, governed by, the way she was raised and the way she was taught at Harvard. Everything's about DEI. She doesn't hire white people. She doesn't invite them to her Christmas parties. She doesn't care. She thinks she lives in this little bubble, and she continue to push this DEI nonsense and continue to protect illegal aliens. We see it almost daily that ICE is rounding up violent illegal alien criminals in Boston who were released into the community by Democrats, by Democrat judges and Democrat elected leaders like this menace. But she's not slowing down. She's doubling down on the insanity. Here she is recognizing, celebrating, let me get this right, Big Queer Food Fest. Yes, this is the mayor of an American city, and she still thinks, we should be out celebrating big queers, I guess. Is that who this food fest is for? Big queer, like large queers, I guess. Whatever. Let's listen.
Hey Boston, the Big Queer Food Fest is here. Come enjoy a week-long celebration of LGBTQ plus chefs, mixologists, and creatives. From conversations and comedy sets to cocktails and food, there is something for everyone. And it's all leading up to the grand tasting this weekend. Read about all the events across Boston and get your tickets at bigqueerfoodfest.com. Thank you to the festival's chefs, artists, organizers, and nonprofit partners Bagley, Community Servings, and GLAD for bringing this week of events to life.
So you can't be a straight chef in this. You have to be a big queer chef.
Yeah, you get hit with sticks if you go and you're straight.
Yeah. So you taste the food and then you say, which big queer made my food? Oh, great job, sir, ma'am. We're this last bastion. We're done as in a country. We're done with this. We're done with this identity politics. We're done with this elevating people because of their sexuality. But here in Boston, we're still protecting illegal aliens. We're still pushing DEI, and we're still celebrating Big Queer Food Fest. You know what? Maybe I'll check that out. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Maybe I'll have some good food from the big queers, but we'll see.
I'll be concerned though if they let you in. I'll be like, what aren't you telling me?
Which Biden clip do you want to wrap up with? Because I know you have a lot to choose from, and I know it wasn't the media's fault. But imagine thinking that you were fooled by Jill Biden and KJP. That's basically what he's. I know this just pushes me over the edge, but this Chuck Todd was a guy who was a main guy. He was a big deal in the media. He was doing the Sunday morning show. He was like the news director or whatever, and he wants you to believe that he was fooled by Karine Jean-Pierre and Jill Biden. That's his take. That's his story, and he's sticking with it. Yeah, you go with it, Chucky. You go with it. But all right, that will do it for today. Day 101. Trump should do another rally. He should continue to do rallies because not only does he love it, not only do his people love it, but it drives the media nuts. They just hate it. And the more fun he has, the more miserable they are. It's great to see. By the way, he called up Scott Jennings, the great Scott Jennings, on stage yesterday in Michigan, which was great. He called up a bunch of people, just winging it. Come on up, say a few words. Called up one of the union guys, called up Stephen Miller, of course, and Scott Jennings. That must have just wrecked them at CNN. They must have hated that. But hey, Scott's busy saving their network. So
they have to fake hate it though. Like they can't be like, this is bad for us. They must realize how good.
I know he's literally saving the network. I do this. I flip around and watch different. If he's on, I watch because it's him against five, it's 1-on-5 and he handles them beautifully. As he said, he needs to buy a ranch so he has a place to put all the libs he owns. That's what he said when he joined Trump on stage. It was a great move bringing him up there because he is a fighter and he is a must watch. But they're not dumb enough to get rid of him. They know he brings viewers and they're desperate. They need him. But, all right, that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Show, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. I actually traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact.